I think all of us, myself included, or at least I'll put myself on blast, have fallen into the toxic thinking trap. I'll start it next week. I'll do it when I hit this goal. When I make this number, I'll win. Because 89% of entrepreneurs say they'll focus on health once they hit their financial goals. Yet research shows that optimal health increases business success by 47%. And so the question to sit with is, what if waiting to prioritize your wellness is actually slowing your growth? And what if prioritizing your wellness is your fastest path to wealth? Because today on the Mind of George show, which either this is your first time listening, so welcome, or welcome back, this is the place for entrepreneurs who know that scaling their business isn't just about crappy strategies and tactics, outdated business models, or the mindset limitations, but it's understanding that you are the most important player in your business because you're driving. And it's about caring for you and executing the playbooks that matter with authenticity, mastering your mindset, refining your customer journey, and creating marketing that truly connects with you and your ideal audience, but also being able to have the capacity and the health to handle it and live in the results of the dreams that we're all out building. And today I have a dear friend from a very, very long distance away, my friend Mauro, who is the CEO of Six Pack CEO. He reveals why chasing wealth shouldn't cost you your health and how peak performance is the ultimate business advantage. And I just want to acknowledge I've been having a lot of conversations about health. And this is because as somebody who used to be 100 pounds overweight and used to struggle with this, and I've made all the mistakes and it cost me everything, my health has been the number one biggest needle mover when it comes to my business. And so in this episode, we dive into how and why your biology dictates your business success, the 4 most important pillars for peak performance, how to optimize your sleep for maximum recovery. And here's a hint, it has nothing to do with the amount of hours that you sleep, why basic habits beat fancy biohacks every single time, and the truth about burnout and recovery. And so I would submit that we get one life and one body, and we cannot outperform our biology. So let's make sure that we are taking care of the most important asset in the business, which is you. So without further ado, let's dive into the show. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mind of George show. Today, I am stoked. I get to reconnect with somebody I've been connected with on the internet who found me years ago because he resonated deeply with relationships beating algorithms, which I love, and has now turned it into a business and a passion. But I'm excited about today's conversation because we're going to be diving into health, probably hormones, probably the mistakes that people make when it comes to trying to optimize their health, over-optimize their health. And I was in for today's guest when I saw the notes, and it was why chasing wealth shouldn't cost you your health. And for those of you who have known me long enough, you know I've fallen into this mistake numerous times and ended up with the most success I've ever had, and also 100 pounds overweight with adrenal fatigue and my body in the worst state that it could ever be. And now the healthiest I've ever been. And it's not something I've talked about a ton, but with today's guest, I'm really, really excited to unpack all this and to hear his expertise as I've been consuming his content for the last couple of days. And I'm just excited to listen, take notes. And so today I'm joined from my friend Mauro. He can pronounce his name way better. He's got the accent. I can't do it justice. So I'm giving you the United States version of Mauro Stara. He's the CEO and founder of Six Pack CEO, but he specializes in peak performance. And he helps the most successful CEOs and business owners go from exhausted mainstream approaches, being burnt out across the world, to resolving challenges and creating individualized approaches by helping people understand their health and how to thrive using blood work and personalized coaching, and really helps people understand, as the running joke for me, is this body that we get issued, but we never take the time to read the owner's manual. And so I'd say Mauro is probably the king of helping you understand the owner's manual of your body and how to optimize it for performance. So I'm really, really excited today. So Mauro, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me on, George.
Dude, it's an honor. I'm glad to be reconnected, and I'm glad we caught you in Mexico before you go back to Portugal, just traveling all over the world. And I appreciated our talk before. And as we were talking before, I kind of want to dive right into it and hit the nail on the head here, because you have this giant philosophy, which I think I wholeheartedly agree with, which is why chasing wealth shouldn't cost you your health. And you're somebody who coaches entrepreneurs, the most successful business owners, the most successful CEOs. And I'd love for you just to unpack that, your theory behind that, the mistakes that you see people making, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, it's definitely a big theme around the world. You know, I used to work in banking, corporate, and I saw that so many times there. And now, you know, in August, it's going to be 10 years since I started coaching people when it comes to their fitness and health. 2017, 2019 was where I moved it online, but 2015 is when I started. And there's a lot to unpack there. There's a lot of beliefs, but like the core idea that I've seen for most guys is they have a number in their mind. It can be 10 grand a month usually when you start out, 100 grand a month, 50 grand a month, 1 million a month. Like there's that number. Usually it's a moving target, because once you hit number one, it becomes a milestone. It's like, oh, I actually need to go further. I need to make more. I want to make more. But there's that number that so many guys have in mind, and they think once I hit that golden number, that sweet spot, then everything else comes. Then the kids will come. Then, you know, I'll take care, or I'll be more present with my wife. I'm gonna take care of my health. And the idea stems from sequencing. Like, you want to sequence things in terms of priorities. What's my number one priority? Well, as a man, if you look back thousands and thousands of years ago, right, like your role, and even today, but back then it was much more primal, is to provide and to protect. So today you don't have to go out there and hunt anymore. Rather, you provide and protect in different ways, but the main one is money. If you make enough money, if you make good money, you're able to provide for your family, take care of your loved ones, your best friends, whoever you want, and you're able to protect them in a certain way. Of course, there's a physical protection part, and there's different ways, but again, with money, you can protect them, you can move into a wealthier, safer neighborhood, security, whatever that is, right? So money will be the North Star and the moving target for most businessmen. So if we know that to be true, then we know why or where that belief stems from. The error in thinking is that the other things that I'm putting aside will not fuel that main target. So just this morning, I was having a chat with a guy, and he told me, hey, I've put all my resources, all the money into my business. I've put it all there, and I don't have any budget left for my health. Once I've hit that number, he truly said that once I've hit that financial target, then I'm going to allocate some of that budget there. So I said, are you open to some feedback? Some people don't want feedback. They're just focused, and that's fine, right? And he's like, sure. What do you have? And I said, listen, and I told him similar story as I said here. And then I added, let's take two guys, right? I like to have the two identities, right? The fat version of you and the fit version of you, but the storyteller, because usually when you show two paths, people can see the differences. And I told him, there's the guy that says, hey, once I made it, I take care of myself. I'm going to optimize my sleep, my hormones, and so on. And that guy usually is drained. His brain is inflamed from all the, you know, fried food and poor sleep and, you know, garbage that he puts in, right? Because if you feel like shit, you perform like shit. It's no rocket science. And that guy is working twice as hard for the same output. So you have another guy that looks at it from a little bit of a different perspective. He optimizes his hormones, his biology, his sleep, stress management, workouts, nutrition. Everything is locked in. He's not looking to be perfect, but everything is locked in to a degree where his body becomes a multiplier of his wealth rather than a liability. So he's building an asset, because ultimately your business is a reflection of your energy. And you cannot outperform your biology. If you sleep 4 hours, if you feel like shit, that's the highest level. So that's the highest level of performance you're going to bring to the table. On the other side, if you optimize that and peak perform, then you're going to get there much faster. And he replied, all right, what do you have, right? What's your offer? So we can get into the sales part of it, or into the offer part of it, but really it was more around making someone understand that, hey, I understand you have that target. Allocating a few hours a week, it doesn't take 50 hours or 20 hours, or not even 10 hours, just a few, 2, 3, 4 hours a week to optimize your biology will get you to that target faster. And isn't that what you want in the first place? Right? Because we will not get there by just grinding it out and working twice as hard, because time is limited. You and I, George, we have 24 hours a day. You know that, all you listeners, everyone knows that. So there's a specific, there's a limitation on the time, 24. You can't get more. When it comes to energy, it's unlimited. So if you know how to multiply that energy on the hourly basis, you will get more shit done, and you're going to get faster to whatever target you have. You're going to get faster also to whatever identity you aim to be. Let's say a dad wants to be more present, wants to be a better father. Well, do you think the dad with, the dad body is going to be the better father and the better role model, or is it going to be the other dad who's fit, jacked, and the superhero, not just for his kids but the friends of his kids, right? So the idea, just to wrap this off, is we have that North Star, and that does not have to change. And a lot of people think, oh, I have to put, no, that stays. 100 grand a month, 1 million a month, I don't care what that number is. That number can stay. But we have to understand that putting everything aside may not get you there faster. It will actually take twice, maybe 10 times as long, and maybe you will not get there, right? Maybe you will have a heart attack before you get there.
Yeah, I love it. I've never told anybody this, but when I lost the weight, one of my favorite moments, right? All the clothing I wear is from my friend's clothing company, and it's comfortable and it fits me. But I picked my son up from school one day, like a year and a half ago, and they're like, Branson, your dad's here. You have the jacked dad. The jacked dad. And I heard it. And I'm talking about 6-year-olds. And it did something to my core. Like it did something to my heart where I was like, oh, yeah, but having an 8-year-old too. Like I remember when he was younger, I didn't have the energy. I was sluggish. I was tired. Like I just wanted to sit down every time he'd ask me to play. I'm like, oh, daddy's tired. Daddy's tired. And now I'm like chasing him out in the yard. We're jumping on the trampoline. We're doing all these things. And I love the concept of like, you cannot outperform your biology. What I think would be helpful, because I have 100 questions already, and I'm really excited to dive into this. How do you define, like in your definition or what you see, because you were talking about, how simple some of this can be, and we're going to unpack that, but how do you define peak performance?
Very good question. I've been asked that a few times, and I've seen a lot of people in the space talk about that. The way I see it is, think about the days where you wake up and everything just flows. You're not just in a mental, but physical flow state. You wake up, there's no back pain, no stiff knees. You go to the bathroom, you just feel great. There's no bloating. You look great, you feel great, you perform great. Like the entire day is almost perfection, or engineered for perfection, the way you feel. And everyone would say, hey, this was a great day. This is my peak self, at least to the current standards, right? When we optimize it, the standard will go up. But that is my best self. And most people just leave that there and accept that it's just one day out of the month, one day out of the week, every other day, one day out of the year, right? Depending on the state of your health. So what if that doesn't have to be a coincidence, but you can engineer it that not every day, that's not realistic, but most of your days look like that? How much more would you get done? How much better would you feel? How would your life be different? And that to me is peak performance, where you're in your A game as many days as possible. All right, let's say 5 out of 7 days a week. Nobody is going to have 7 out of 7 days. Everyone who says that is just full of shit. Right? But let's say 5 out of 7 days or 6 out of 7 days that you're on your A game and you're just at your peak. That to me defines peak performance.
Yeah, I love that definition. I had a mentor. I love you, Jeff Spencer, if you're listening to this. And he's responsible for like helping 80 something people win gold medals, and Tiger Woods and Lance Armstrong, like, and their peak performance coach. And he shared this with me over a decade ago. And he's like, champions do not win because they sprint at 100% every day. He's like, the secret is the word temperance. He's like, my goal with everybody is to find their 70% that they can hit every day. Because on the days where it's needed, the business gets shut down. You have to launch a new initiative. You have to sprint really hard. You can tune into that 100. But to your point, and even what you said earlier, this thought of like, if I just do more, if I add more, if I overcomplicate this, you just end up in burnout. And I've never let go of that. I even like made a scripture statement for me that said, I overvalue intensity and I undervalue consistency, because I fell into that trap, right? To your point, like the moving target, right? Where it's like, oh, I'll start this when, I'll be here when, I'll have this when, and when never comes. And I actually joked about this morning. I was laughing with you before we started because I did leg day this morning. And I remember I called my partner when I left the gym this morning and I was like, why do I do this to myself? I used to get in the best shape of my life. I'd have it. And then I'd be like, oh, I'm taking a 6-month break. And then I come back and I'm like, I have to work so much harder to get back to that baseline rather than just like maintaining it and keeping it focused, because I allow life to get in the way. So I love your definition of that. I want to understand, because you said sequencing earlier and you were talking about sequences, right? So I think it's really easy. And to your example of like the two versions of us, right? Like I think men and women that both listen to this podcast, I see this as probably the number one conversation I'm having with clients right now is they're burnt out, right? This overexertion, this overcompensation, the more just always tends to lead to this burnout, and it delays the inevitable. And you were talking about sequencing. Can you explain like what you mean by sequencing? Because when I hear it, I hear like habit stacking or putting the right priorities in place, but I'd love to know like your definition of sequencing.
Well, there's multiple definitions from my end, and I'm sure from your end. It was more in the case of sequencing. Let me first make money, then health, then family. And it's like, you think that's the way to go, but that does not make any sense, because it's going to take you way longer to hit goal number one, which means you have less time for the others. Or if you
Yes.
combine it, you're going to collapse time and get there much sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I love that. That's what I thought I heard. I just wanted to make sure because, like I say on this podcast before, like you can't scale your business till you can scale yourself first. And I even joke that like business is the playbook, but we're the player executing that playbook. And the player needs to have the capacity and the energy. And to your point, the mental ability and acuity to be able to focus and think clearly and not be burnt out, whether just from fatigue or, to your point, like hormones and the actual like science of things that happens to our body when we're constantly stressed. And so when you think about that, when we think about sequencing and like investing in ourselves first, right? Like you help people optimize their hormones, and you were talking about like their sleep and their movement, right? What are some of like the core areas? Because I think there's this myth that I see where everyone overcomplicates this whole process, where like I have to go be perfect at the gym, or I have to schedule a 2-hour workout every day, instead of like, I'm going to spend 20 minutes today. Or to your point, I have like 3 hours a week that I'm going to do this. Like, what are the core areas that people should be focused on optimizing to be able to start that path now?
Yeah, sure. And actually, I also want to add something to the
Please.
burnout that you added before, but let me answer the first question here. So, we have four pillars. One is nutrition. We can go deeper into that, but nutrition, recovery, which is sleep and stress, training, and then activity. So training is resistance training, and activity will be walking, swimming, biking, whatever, right? And those are the four core pillars. And then there's much more that goes beneath that, where you can look at supplementation, blood work, data, scans, but like everything will feed into those pillars, and that is like the core foundation of everything. And to does that answer your question?
Yeah, that answers my question. And now we'll hit burnout, and then we'll come back to that. Everybody, just get
Sure.
ready for the ride with us. You got my ADHD brain in this one.
Yeah. So with the burnout, right? A lot of the advice out there is like, oh, you're doing too much, right? Like you should slow down. But really, it's you're under recovered. If you recover better, you can do more. So it's not always about doing less, because telling someone that's a go-getter, an A player, to do less, like that will just not work with the way they're built and their identity. Rather, it's like, hey, you need to optimize your recovery, right? And if you, so it's kind of like, don't use your phone less, just charge it more. And the same is here, right? Like you don't need to stop doing what you're doing or slow down, like just recharge yourself more and feed into that. And so there are like two key hormones that play a really big role when it comes to recovery and burnout. One is DHEAS. It's a precursor to testosterone as well. And it's a hormone that's produced by your adrenal glands. And if that's low, then think about it like everyone thinks about cortisol, right? Stress hormone, but like your DHEAS is like your stress buffer. And if that's low, then you're going to be much more irritated, triggered. Your capacity to handle stress is going to be much, much lower. And that's going to be a big issue. So if you increase DHEAS, then you increase your stress buffer and you can automatically handle more. And the other one, more for females than for guys, is progesterone. And that's why you see usually women like in perimenopause or postmenopause, like they often it's said that they can't handle stress that well anymore, and they're much more irritated, triggered. And it's like, it's not age is usually just an accumulation, or a makeup, a mask of something that's been happening for years. And one is a decline in hormones. And so if your progesterone is low, then progesterone helps you calm down as well. You're not up like that all the time, right? Going 100 miles an hour. And if you go 100 miles an hour and you don't have that brake anymore, well, then your car is just racing, and you're freaking out. So if your hormones are in line and in tune, goes also for the guys, but this one here more for women, then you're going to be much calmer, much more in your feminine energy, less in your masculine energy. And it's going to, that internal shift in your biology will make a huge external shift in how you show up in your day-to-day life.
I love that, actually, because I am part of a company where we have a supplement that's really like a cortisol regulation, but not really, because you can't control your cortisol. Cortisol is a response to the world around you. So I love your call out on that. It's really controlling yourself, your nervous system, your body, to be able to be in those situations or navigate them differently. So I want to actually talk about recovery, because I would love for you to define like what recovery is. Because I think for people listening, it doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, you don't work out or you don't train or you don't do these things. But I think recovery is something I've yet to see defined like really well in the lens of like recovering your body. And like we're surrounded by stimulation and noise and stuff in the world. So when you talk about recovery, how do you define like what recovery is?
It depends on which element we're looking at. I wouldn't say there's like a general theme. It's more specific on an activity. So let's say training, right? When we coach or mentor the guys that we work with, when it comes to training, like one of the biofeedbacks there is, do you feel fresh before you hit your next session? So let's say I train on Monday, and then on Wednesday at 9:59, I'm at the gym, 10 a.m. I'm going to start. How do you feel at 9:59, 10 a.m., right? Like, do you feel fatigued while you're under recovered, or do you feel fresh going into that workout? And that is a very important sign, because if you're dragging yourself week to week, month to month into the gym, and your trainer tells you it's all about motivation, you got to push it harder, bro. Well, yeah, if you're showing up and you're fatigued, maybe it's not motivation, and maybe you're just under recovered because either you're under eating, under sleeping, overstressed, central nervous system, is getting hammered, or you're overtraining in terms of intensity, volume, frequency, whatever that is, right? So one element has to be adjusted, and using biofeedback, not just numbers, is very helpful. And because I had that, right? It's like I was so fatigued going into the next session, I'm like, you just gotta suck it up and push it. And it's like, wait a minute, like that doesn't make any sense. So I cut down about 25-30% of the volume I was doing, and I was fresher, and I started setting new PRs. And so we always have to think like, what is the main target? So when it comes to lifting weights, resistance training, given the goal is body recomposition, meaning looking better, changing the way you look, so losing fat, building muscle, then the goal is eventually to load up more weights, right? Also called progressive overload. And so if you're progressively overloading and the strength curve looks like this, then there's a strong correlation with growing muscle, right? Unless you're gaining size and gaining leverage through that. But let's say weight plus minus stays the same, like your body weight, but your weights are going up. That's a very clear sign. And you also can measure it with DEXA scans and how you look in the mirror. So if that's my number one target, that those weights are moving up, then it's not adding more sets or more volume or more days. It's like, am I recovered enough that when I hit the gym, I'm able to set those new PRs? And if I'm not, then something needs to change, right? Because the main thing is the main thing. And a lot of people forget that, right? So that would be one example of recovery. When it comes to nutrition, if I'm very fatigued, if I have shaky legs, I'm tired, like maybe I'm under eating for the amount of activity I'm doing. So recovery is a moving target depending on the activity we do and the combination of systems and activities. So if I'm eating 2,500 calories and I feel good, everything is fine, and I'm walking 10,000 steps, but now walk 25,000 steps a day, well, there's going to be a shift in recovery for my resistance training, for my sleep, for my diet. Like it will impact everything. So it's a communication between different systems, and the moment you change just one thing, everything changes, and we need to figure out how does that one change impact the other things, and what can I do to optimize those.
I love that. That's something I learned as well. You know, when I was losing the weight, because I had my macros, I was like, and rough, I'm like, here's the number. But then I got the itch, right? And I'm like, oh, spring was here. I was hiking more. I was doing everything. Then all of a sudden, my legs weighed like 200 pounds each. I was like, I couldn't move them. I couldn't run. And I was like, oh, because I've been under eating for like basically a month now, because I kept the number the same. I kept training. But then here's the craziest part. The weight loss also plateaued as well, because my body went into a stress response and it was getting underfed. And so I love the call out and the correlation. And because we've talked about it a few times, and I have to own this and apologize, I was also the guy when I launched this podcast, 500 something episodes ago, where I was like, I'll sleep when I'm dead. And now I have a very, very different tune, since, like deep sleep is where like hormones reproduce and rebuild and all of that. And as we talk about recovery, you were talking about, basically allowing our bodies to feel energized and using the biofeedback. Like really our body's our best barometer, right? So when you look at these buckets, you were talking about, you have your nutrition, you have your training, but your stress bucket was sleep and something else. Can you like unpack the importance of sleep and like how people can start to optimize those things?
Yeah, so when it comes to sleep, you have different phases during the night. You already touched one, deep sleep. I'd argue the
Yep.
most important one, but REM sleep is also very, very important. Deep sleep is in the early stages of the night, and that's where physical repair happens. So muscle tissue gets repaired there. If you're training, that's where lifting weights, right? Training is like a broad term. If you're lifting weights or doing some cardio, whatever, then that's where the repair happens. And then you also release a lot of growth hormone there. And if you miss that, then you're just going to miss out on a lot of growth hormone release, and that's going to have an impact on your aging, on your muscle growth, fat loss, the way you look. So very, very important part. And then REM sleep is in the later stages of the night. That's more brain health, brain repair, memory, clearance, and also testosterone. About 70% of your testosterone gets produced, for the male listeners. Females have it as well, but mainly a male topic. 70% of your testosterone gets produced during REM sleep. And if you're not optimizing that part there as well, then you're going to miss out on a lot of testosterone production. And that's why usually when you wake up with an erection, it's right in the morning, and the REM cycle that's the biggest is right before you wake up, right? So you have those two phases. Now there's a million biohacks right out there that people push and look at when it comes to sleep. I would say get an Aura ring. Mine is just over there charging. That helps you establish a baseline, because if you're just guessing, it's very, very hard to know if you had enough of each phase. But the Aura ring or a Whoop or just a tracking device will get you a little bit more data. And once you have the data, now you can set the targets and, hey, here's where I need to be and here's where I currently am. and you know the gap. Because if you're almost perfect there, maybe your energy and focus should be dedicated to something else. Where if your sleep is really bad or unoptimized, then that should be the focus. So there are like 3 4 things that will make 80% of your success when it comes to sleep. First one is your circadian rhythm. They've done a lot of studies around that, and when I saw that, I couldn't believe it. But the people who slept longer had a higher mortality rate compared to the people who slept less but went to bed and got up at the same time. So your rhythm is more important than how long you sleep. Of course, we don't want to go in extremes and say, oh, if I sleep 1 hour a night, you get the point. But if you're sleeping, let's say 6 hours a night versus 7 hours, and the guy sleeps 6 hours, goes to bed at 10 p.m., gets up, 4 a.m., for example, the guy that goes to bed at 10 p.m. and then 11 and then 12 and then 1 and then 9:30, like flips around all the time, his circadian rhythm is just mismatched. And your circadian rhythm is your inner biological clock. It's connected with different organs. There, in every organ has a circadian clock. And then there's the master clock in the brain. And what you want to do is to get that first pillar in the circadian rhythm firing up, is going to bed and getting up at the same time. We don't have to be robots, but if you have a 30-minute window that you can aim for there, that's going to be really good. Number 2, good sleep starts in the morning. So you want to get sun exposure. If you don't have sunlight, then a 10,000 lux lamp is really good during the winter days, colder days, darker days. And even if there's no sun shining, you can still go out 5, 10, 50 minutes, quick walk, get your coffee out there, walk your dog, whatever it needs to be that gets you out, do it. Sun exposure is going to help regulating your circadian rhythm there. Number 3 is not eating too close to bed. So why is that important? That will feed into the second piece and third piece, or second, third rule of good sleep. So we know that if your core body temperature is too high and you're too hot, then you're not going to get a lot of deep sleep. So eating too close to bed will increase both. That's why it's so important. And the reason for that is, if you eat too close to bed, then your body's digesting. And when your body's digesting, your heart rate is going to be higher and you're going to be warmer. There's going to be more blood flow into the stomach. So automatically, high heart rate and higher core body temperature is just a recipe for a disaster, aside from blood sugar and all the other things. So we don't have to go into that. But that is the big one there. And if you stop eating 3 to 4 hours before bed, so let's say bedtime is 10 p.m. and your last bite was at 7 or 6, between 6 and 7, that would be a really sweet spot and good target. Now your heart rate goes down, core body temperature is lower, and you automatically are going to get more deep sleep. So the lower your heart rate is right before you go to bed, as if your heart rate is here and you go to bed, and if you get a little bit more down, it will go deeper, and the lower that is, the more deep sleep you're going to get. That is like one of the easiest ones. You can just move the time. And if for whatever reason that doesn't work, then walking after eating will help speed up the digestion. That's going to be very, very helpful there. But I always say aim to eat much sooner. And the other one is, when we stick to the eating, that you want to eat between sunrise and sunset. Because if you eat long after sunset, and I know during winter it's harder, so aim to just be as close as possible. But if you eat too late or long after sunset, then what happens is your sugar is going to be too high all night long. So you can be 6-pack lean and still pre-diabetic. I've seen a lot of blood work where guys are really ripped, jacked, but they're still pre-diabetic. And they say, why? Like, I have a 6-pack. It's like, well, the 6-pack is one thing, but the meal timing is another one. And here's why. When the sun goes down, your body starts producing melatonin. And melatonin receptors block the release of insulin. They kind of tell your pancreas, which release insulin, to go to sleep. and your pancreas, they leave work, they go home, like, all right, I'm done for the day. And your sugar is going to be up because your insulin will lower glucose. And if insulin is off work, right, then glucose is going to be up all night long. So there's nobody to put glucose in its place, which is primarily storing it into the muscles as a main function. Then eventually it can go into the fat cells. But that's the main thing, right? And if you eat too close to bed, that's what happens. And I had a client, he got a CGM. So that's a constant glucose monitor, like a patch that you put on your shoulders. You get an app and it tells you where sugar is on a 24-hour cycle. So he had the same exact calories, everything same meal, same amount of sauces, everything prepared the same. And he ate one meal at 5 p.m. and the next day was like 8 p.m. His sugar was way higher and it took 3 times as long to get down. Same person, same meal, everything was the same. Just eating 3 hours later made that big of a difference.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have to say, I just learned quite a few things, and I'm like taking copious notes for myself over here because I can think back to even in performance mode of like training and losing weight, but when like my bedtime was inconsistent, how I would be fatigued. And yet I'd sleep the same amount, but I'd go to bed 2 hours later or 3 hours later and I'd let myself sleep in the next day. But I was like throwing the system off. So I love that circadian rhythm, like our bodies thrive and function with it, almost like predictability. And then even the eating thing too, because I can think back even in the last couple of months where I'll have a really busy day, I'll get my training in, but I'm like, come 8 p.m. and I'm like, I haven't hit my meals for today. And I like eat this giant dinner and I'm supposed to go to bed at 9. I can't fall asleep. My heart rate's up. Like, and I'm like laying there and I'm exhausted physically, but like my mind is racing and then it takes me forever to fall asleep and then I'm fatigued the next day. So I absolutely love that. And it actually brings me to the way that you simply broke that down was like music to my heart and my soul, because I love the simplicity of that. And one of the things we were joking about before is this like over complication and over optimization of like the core functions of our body for peak performance. And so, one of the things that we share in common, and I would love your thoughts on this, is being in the simplification of it, right? Like it's not necessarily that, for anybody listening, maybe you haven't been tracking your sleep or you just heard that and you're like, holy moly, I could work on getting consistent with my sleep schedule. But, the changes, it's like this moving line that keeps going to where like we're forever in pursuit of like peak performance. So can you talk about how simplicity is better than, perfection or intensity in a lot of these things? Because I know for people listening, like there's some people like, I'm off in all 4 buckets, or, I haven't even thought about these things, but I think it's something that you help so many people walk through, and I would love your thoughts on it.
Yeah, the way I see life is like a video game. You have a character. So George is the main character. I'm the main character. The listener, right? You guys who are listening, you're the main character of your life, kind of like the player in the playbook. And
Mm-hmm.
just as with video games, your character has certain skills, level 1 to 10. So let's say you optimize your health and you get to level 8, level 9. You can spend millions and years getting that extra edge, and maybe you need that. Maybe you want to be Mr. Olympia. Maybe when it comes to bodybuilding, maybe you want to be a pro athlete. Then that's fine. You have to be a 10 out of a 10. You want to be the top 0.0.01% in your industry. But for 99% of people, they will do just fine if they're 8 and 9 out of 10. And that's not like, oh, you can just be average. No. But if your blood work is optimized, if you have a 6-pack, if you have solid muscle mass, you're hitting a gym, like you're doing those things. We only have a certain amount of time during the day. So wouldn't it make sense to allocate now that time to build out new skills, whether it's a new language, whether it's business, whether it's family, kids, learning to play an instrument, doing just something else. And so over optimization is really relative to the person's other skills and strengths in relation to that person's goals. So again, if your primary goal objective is I want to be pro athlete, then yes, you have to hyper optimize. But if you're a business owner and you want to get jacked, you want to look good, feel good, perform well, optimize your health, biomarkers, then it does not take that much of extreme optimization to be dialed in and locked in. It takes very few basic things on top of, timing of those things and maybe intensity, consistency. But once you're locked in, then uh, I always tell to the guys, like, immerse yourself 90 days into the program. And then once you've automated certain habits, you can shift and immerse yourself into the next thing that you want to move on with your life, and just keep those standards high there, right? A lot of people think like my health is my number one priority. It's not, right? Of course, it's a very, very important value, but for me, it's going to be business, right? There's many, many more things. Business is much more complex to optimize than health. Health is actually, you don't have politics, you don't have regulations, you don't have a lot of things there, right? You don't have competition, you have none of that. And most guys made it in business where you have all of that, right? So if you can make it in business, then making it with your health is really not that hard, because you already won the game where it was an uphill battle, and this is just a straight path. There is no uphill, so to say. And that's where I see it in terms of over optimization. It's like, okay, get the 80-20, 90-10, and then it does not make sense to spend 90% of the time optimizing those last 10%, where you could spend hours and hours on other stuff that are going to be more in life. And to me, winning is not winning in one area, right? Nobody admires the business owner who's like 50 pounds overweight on his yacht with his belly hanging, over his shorts. At the same time, nobody admires the jack guy whose only purpose in life is to eat chicken, rice, and broccoli, and is making no money, and there's no social skills. There's nothing else there, right? Like, the guy that's really winning when it comes to men, but also for the female listeners, that the person that's really winning is the hardest skill sets on different levels, right? And I've seen that even like with women who are fitness models or so. They look, their body's phenomenal, and I've met many of them. And then when they open their mouth, it's like, it's very boring. It's like all just about fitness and lifting. It's like there's nothing else in your life aside from that. It's like super boring. Or if you've
Mhm.
mastered many areas, that is impressive. That is admirable. That is winning to me, right? Someone else, maybe they just want to win in one area. For me, I'm not like that.
Yeah. And I think I love the way that you even describe that, because I think it really boils down to like what you value, right? Like, I value time with my son. I value conversations like this. I value the energy to go hike randomly on a Wednesday, because I'm like, hey, it's nice out. It's 60 degrees or 18 Celsius for my Celsius people. I'm going to go hike up the mountain today. And then, oh, I want to do 4 podcasts today, or I want to run an event today. Right. And there's all these like correlations. And I love the analogy, not even the analogy of like, just the way that you described it, of like, health is and wellness and peak performance for me. And what I'm hearing is like, it's this moving finish line, but it's a good thing, because it's this optimization to where, there's a harmonious relationship in all of this, between your energy levels, between your sleep, between your food, and then taking the byproduct of yourself, or the character in the game, and then applying it to the field in front of you. Right. And, I think for entrepreneurs listening to this, like, if you're grounding up a business right now and you're about to launch a product, you're going to be sprinting, right? There's a whole lot of stuff ahead of you, versus when you're like in maintenance mode, or you're in scale mode, or something along those lines. But your physical capacity and your energy dictates so much of your success by being able to focus on that. And I just love the way that you break it down. And truthfully, my mind is still blown about the sleep thing. I'm like making notes over here for myself. I'm like, okay, the benefit for me is I have an 8-year-old and I need to get him to bed on time every night. And so I use that as my bedtime and accountability, because I'm like, he sleeps next to me. So I'm like not playing on my phone. He's like, Dad, I'm not going to sleep. You're not going to sleep. And I'm like, all right, I'll go to sleep. So I have that like consistency baked in. What are some of like the big mistakes that you see people make when it comes to, like, we hit the big one, right? Which is thinking that like, I'll start optimizing my health or my vitality or my energy when I hit this false number, right? I think another one that we've kind of identified is the overcomplication of it, where trying to plan it perfectly instead of like going for a walk or changing a meal or, having a sleep schedule. But what are some of the like the other roadblocks that you see people bump into when it comes up to like peak performance?
I would say modeling what someone else is doing rather than getting in blood work and optimizing what you should be doing. So we see Brian Johnson, we see, Gary Brecka, Paul Saladino, maybe Hormozy, like everyone has their routine and it works great for them. And we can certainly apply certain philosophies and principles and maybe even core habits, but they're usually like the people are, let's say, influencers or famous in the space. They're on top of their game when it comes to whatever they're doing or teaching. So what they're doing right now may not be what someone else should be doing right now. So like the business owner making 1 million a month is primarily focused on making key decisions to grow the business and scale the business. Where the business owner at 5 grand a month, like that guy needs to work like a dog and he's not making key decisions. Like the decision is get out of bed and market and sell. And that's it, right? And deliver on your promises. Where the other one has maybe, 20, 30, 50 people on the team that he needs to focus on and lead and speak with his CFO, COO, look at the core values, like the brand, like there's way other responsibilities and focuses. So if that guy shares what he's doing on a day-to-day basis and I'm at, let's say, 5 grand a month, it would be so stupid to model that. The same thing can be said about the other guy that's in the health space that is six-pack lean, no inflammation, not overstressed, like perfect health, and now he's focusing on increasing his nighttime erections, right? Like let's say Brian Johnson. Well, the guy that's 50 pounds overweight and has a lot of visceral fat, a lot of inflammation, insulin resistance, maybe that should not be the first target, right? That can come later, if any, but there should be another focus. So the way to start is get in blood work, not just the one that you go to your doctor and he gets done, like where he checks your sugar and cholesterol, but in the very advanced panel, and look at what that panel says, where numbers are at, and then based on that should be your focus and starting point there, and not where someone else is modeling that. And I think it's just a huge mistake that we make because we aspire to be like those people, but we forget that what got them, what got you here won't get you there. So there's always another focus for another level, and you can't just take level 4 focus to level 80 focus, right? That's just not how it works. And that's why when I
Mm-hmm.
see guys who are like, again, 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight, they're talking about peptides and stem cells and red light therapy and cold plunges. It's like all those things are great. Like I'm not discrediting those things. They're very useful tools and can be very beneficial, but maybe that should come a little later unless there's like a serious need for it. And you should be focusing maybe on something differently right now. And that's just what I've seen. And it's the same in business and the same in many other areas in life.
Yeah, and you and I were talking about this before because I think in almost summarizing what I heard, like number one is each one of our bodies is unique, right? There are no two of us that are alike, right? And you take your history, you take your weight, your nutrition, whatever that is, it comes in and like you can utilize information and things that you see and ideas and things that you have if they light you up, but they also have to apply and work for you. And to your point, one of the feedback markers is like, do I feel good? Is this giving me energy? Can I do this consistently? But then to your other point, I would submit that I see this a lot where people want to accomplish a goal or lose weight or feel better. So they'll go try to find everything, but they're also ignoring the basics. They're not just moving their body every day. They're not sleeping on a schedule. They're not, being intentional about the food that they eat, or they're drinking 1,000 calories a day. And they're like, I don't know why I'm gaining weight. I will own it. I was 100 pounds overweight because I was addicted to mayonnaise. my macros were dialed. I just never measured my mayonnaise. And I was probably eating like 1,000 calories of mayonnaise a day. I'd make it at home and I'm like on everything. And I was like,
Really?
oh, well, oh, dude, I loved it. I loved it. Just
I
making
thought you were
homemade, like,
joking. Wow.
no, I'm 100% serious. Like, mayonnaise was like a main condiment for me. And like, I would eat clean and I would like hit my protein goals every day, but every single meal I was eating it. And I was like, God, I'm not moving whatsoever. One of my buddies who's a former IFBB pro bodybuilder, he's like, you ever thought about how much mayonnaise you eat? And I was like, no, it's just like a condiment. And then I started like being aware of it. And I was like, oh, well, I'm not going to go add 15,000 steps in my day to keep eating all this mayonnaise. So like, I'm going to track it down a little bit. And then sure as crap, like weight went like crazy. But, you know, as saying this, I think for anybody listening, Mauro and I were talking before the show. And also I think during the show, the basics are the foundation that make all those other things effective in the first place. So like your sleep being one, your movement being another one, like you having an awareness of like what foods give you energy, like which ones respond to your body well, which ones do that, and not overcomplicating the process, because the same thing applies in business. If you forget the basics or you ignore the basics, it doesn't matter how many band-aids you put, it can't cover the hole that the basics are missing. And so I love the way that you like focus that down. And even on the blood work side, I'm going to ask this like logistically, because I'm blessed to have a lot of friends like you that I can just send them my full panels. But like, how does somebody even go about finding somebody qualified to like look at their blood work? Do you think blood work is something that everybody should get done? And if so, like how frequently?
Yeah, everyone should get it as soon as possible because one of the things I wish I did sooner was, let's say you're like in your early 20s or, let's say 18, 19-year old, you get in blood work when and you have the numbers and you know how you feel. So now, let's say you're 40 or 35 or whatever, and you feel like, I don't feel that great. Then you can go back and see like, oh, my testosterone was like this back then, or my thyroid was like this, and I felt so good. So you know what the numbers need to be for you to be on your A game. That's like a really big value of getting it done rather soon later. But everyone should get it done once, twice a year to optimize. And then if year in and year out you're always good, locked in, like it doesn't really change, then yeah, once a year is fine. Like if you do it every 6 months and everything is plus minus the same, then once a year is fine. But that certainly doesn't harm twice a year. It's really not that expensive, and it's a worthwhile investment there. As far as where to go to find someone qualified, that's a tough one because most doctors, when you ask them like, give me the blood work that like we require clients to have, like it's just going to be a frame battle. So like we set up a panel with a telemedicine company that covers the US, we have the UK, Australia. So there are many good clinics there. And then you just have to find someone that can read it. And I've always found that the way I look for experts is who has the results, not the person itself, because they can be an outlier, but who has produced the results that I'm looking for. And
Mm.
do they have a track record for that? And then go to that person and have them look at your labs and optimize those and give you suggestions on what you should do there and put the plan together.
Yeah, I love that. I'm like summarizing this for people listening. It's like number one is like know the current state of your body, like where you currently are, right? And even in what you've shared today, like in the four, what were the four pillars again that you focus on? You said them earlier.
Recovery, which will include
Yeah.
sleep and stress mainly, nutrition, training, so resistance training and activity, walking, swimming, whatever that is.
Okay. Yeah. Because I'm like thinking through this, and even and I'm just gonna own this. I'm pretty dialed now. And I just, even you saying that, I was like, oh yeah, but I like looked at my workout this morning and leg day, and I was like, I was a little fatigued this morning. And I'm like looking at it, I was like, oh, but my sleep, I went to bed at a different time. And so I think if you're listening to this in like whatever area that is, like to even start to summarize this, it's understanding that whatever those goals you're chasing, could be life goals, could be business goals, could be financial goals, could be family goals, the amount of energy and vitality that you have to bring to those directly correlate with your ability to make time more valuable. It's not that we get more time, it's what we can do in that same amount of time. And if you just start by even doing a current state in those buckets, like how is your stress response? Like how is your recovery? How is your sleep? Are you being consistent? Are you moving your body? Are you investing in those things to have it? And then getting a current state of your body. And then I think to Mauro's point earlier that I heard, or maybe this is just my interpretation, is that starting in any of those buckets and pursuing it, and then getting an awareness of your body, get your blood work done if that's a possibility, and then start looking at the areas that you have the most amount of room to optimize in, and start optimizing those, but with simplicity and not complexity, to be able to start to feel better and to make adjustments. And I think keep the frame of mind that it's an evolving relationship, even yourself, right? Like my body's very different than it was when it was 100 pounds heavier, and the way that I run business now is very different than I did, 15 years ago. And I think, there's no finish line in any of this. It's more so this like curiosity and this excitement of this active pursuit to see, well, if I'm a player in a game and I'm performing at like a 4, can I get it to a 6? And maybe I get to a 6 and I'm like, 6 is great. 6 gives me energy with my son. 6 gives me time. But then you have that North Star, whether it's money or goals or vision, and then you adjust these buckets to be able to achieve it. I don't know. Is that a fair like summary so far?
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that you said there's no finish line. I have to credit that to Hormozy. Like when he
Yep.
said that, it was very, very eye opening. Like I already knew that subconsciously, but to formulate it in a clear way that there's no finish line to fitness, to marriage, to business. It's like you start and you never finish. Where people look at, oh, no, there's no once I get there. It's like, it's not I get married and then it's over, unless again you get divorced. But like that was not the purpose of getting married, right? So like you start and then it's an open end, and the same is with fitness. There's no, oh, let me complete that. And also like one of my mentors, Andy Frisella,
Yep. Love Andy.
he said like once you accept that you have to do the work forever, doing the work becomes easy. And once I see clients who feel like, oh, I'm doing this for like 90 days or one, no, 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 no. Like you're not getting in shape to take some photos. If that's the case, I'm not your guy, right? I'm not
Yep.
prepping you and like putting everything into you that you're going to take a photo shoot and then just balloon back up. No, like we're going to set a foundation for life, and that takes time. And once you accept, you have to do the work forever. You have to show up forever. You have to work out forever. Initially maybe a hit in someone's face because they thought like, okay, I just need to do this once. Or no, like you have to start once but you never stop. But once you accept that, it's like, hey, I got to do that forever. It really is not that hard to do it forever.
Yeah. Well, and I think, and I'm gonna go really, really like presencing with this statement. What we're talking about is your ability to have a long life. Like we're talking about your ability to buy back time in health and vitality. Like we're not talking about like, oh, how much money is in your bank account. We're talking how much time is in your life account. And that's the thing that like I don't want a finish line on that. Like I love it. Like one of my friends, Greg Kimball, who's been on the show, but I love it, his mom. She's in her late 70s and I love it because she's at every event. She's like, I'm learning. I hired a trainer. Like, I don't know about people my age, but they're like resolved to quit. Like, I'm not done. Like, I'm going to live till I'm 120. And I love that. Like this constant pursuit of like loving your life to be worth investing in yourself. Just like you have to do maintenance on your car if you want it to run longer, right? You put oil in it, you put gas in it, you change the tires, you take care of it. Like this vehicle is the only one that we're issued. And I love the point that you made about that. It's like falling in love with the fact that there is no finish line, because the finish line means that you're 6 feet underground and not breathing anymore. And so like that perspective is like, I love it. And I can push through it. And, but I think also to tie it in earlier, that doesn't mean that I'm going to self-punish or I'm going to self-harm and I'm going to like train harder. Or, I was a Marine for 13 years, right? It was instilled in our brain. Pain is weakness leaving the body. I'm like, no, I lived in adrenal fatigue for 13 years. Like we would have performed so much better if we had a little recovery or time off or anything besides famous Amos cookies and Pop-Tarts for nutrition when we were deployed. Like, good food makes a difference. So I love that perspective. I love that perspective. So as we start to land this though, I want to put this out there because I know if I have any questions about any of this, I'm coming straight to you and sliding into your DMs. But will you will you share with everybody like where the best place to connect with you is, like especially if they have any comments or questions, or even if you guys want to share wins or anything that was applicable? But will you let everybody know where to connect with you?
Yeah, Instagram and Facebook are the two main channels that you can find me. So just type in my name and you're going to find me there.
Okay, so for everybody listening, will you just spell out what your Instagram handle is so they can find it now? Unless you're driving, wait, and then I'll put everything in the show notes too.
Well, if you just put my name, so Mauro Stara, and then Instagram or Mauro Stara on Facebook, you'll find it there. I don't know if
Oh,
it's
because you're one of those. You have a good name.
this is Mauro and then the minus or under slash. Yeah. And the
I'm
one
on
for
my phone
Facebook,
during the
it has
podcast.
like a few letters in it as well. So I don't know that on top of my head. But if you type in the name, then you'll find it right away.
I love it. I love it. So his Instagram is Mauro Staro Official. So Mauro.
Oh, yeah.
And then
The other one
Staro.
was the private one. Yeah,
Yeah,
good call.
Stara and then official. So Mauro Stara Official. And then do you have a website too, in case anybody wants to go check it out?
Yes, that's sixpackceo.com. Six with the letter six, packceo.com.
I love it. Sixpackceo.com. And for everybody listening, I'll have all these linked in the show notes as well. And I'll make it easy. If you want his Instagram, just DM me and I'll send it to you in case you can't find it. But it popped up right away when I typed your name in. So that one's really, really easy. So I wanna land the plane with just a question to see. So I love asking this question. Like imagine that everybody listening to the show forgot everything that we talked about, but whatever you share right now is going to be like the wisdom they take with them for the rest of their life, like their tattoo wisdom, whether it's investing in themselves, whether you have a minute to share, a quote to share, but like, what would your imparting tattoo wisdom be on everybody that you wish everybody would take with them after today's show?
Sir, what did you say? What was the...
Oh, yeah. So I just imagine that everybody forgot everything we talked about, but they're going to remember everything you say in this moment. And you can impart some wisdom, some life advice, some perspective shifts for them that tattoos into their soul. What would your tattoo wisdom be?
I love the question. If we stick to the main theme that we talked about, especially the first one with the belief shift there and chasing your wealth and sacrificing your health, really the under theme there is, and I had that from one of my mentors. He said the only things we believe to be true are like some core beliefs. The only things the only things we don't question are the things we believe to be true. So we assume that's the truth, but who says that's the truth? And so once you start questioning everything, you open up your perspective and you will get things done smoother. You will just get things done more effective. You'll just have a better life, because how you've always done something doesn't mean that that's how you should continue doing it.
I actually love that. That is a beautiful, beautiful way to land the plane. That is what was the quote again?
The only things we don't question are the things we believe to be true. Right? We question things with like our core beliefs. We don't question those. We just think or assume that's the truth. And maybe that's been ingrained into us since small kids. And it's like, that's just the way it is, right? It's like, the sky is blue. Have you ever questioned that? No. Who says that's blue, right? Now, I'm not saying you need to go down that rabbit hole, right? Like, but that's just like an example where it's like, everyone just assumes that. Well, who says that's really a truth? And it's like, everyone assumes once I made it, I'm going to take care of my health, right? That's how we started the call or the podcast. And it's like, who says that's the truth?
Yeah.
Is there not another way? And there's so many ways, right, to go about this. Like I saw someone the other day made a post, and it's like everyone has this internet marketing playbook, but then there are industry outliers who don't follow that playbook and crush it. So like, is it really that playbook, or is there maybe another way that's even more effective, right? And that's just how life is, right? And it's like, if we always just stay in that program, that subconscious program, we may end up just as we've always done. And so it's hard to catch those things. But if you write it down, like, hey, what do I strongly to believe to be true, and start questioning those things, it's going to be very, very powerful. And a lot of people had aha moments with COVID, with politics, with other big events in their life where they saw like, man, something is fishy, and like a big storm was required. But if you just write those down, you'll have like micro beliefs that you hold up to the truth that are actually not the truth.
Mm. That is such a profound piece of advice. So I'm going to say, everybody, apply it to your fitness, your health, your peak performance, but kind of everywhere, because that is a really good question. And I think the point that Mauro made is the most important. It's don't do it in your head, like write it down and give yourself some space to like write it out. And I'll just share this to end the show. It's so interesting because when I got out of the Marine Corps and I was overweight, I would tell myself, like, I'm just never destined to have a six pack. Like, I don't think it's possible. I can't. And I had that belief wholeheartedly until I started to shift my belief system. And then I was in the best shape of my life at 40 years old. And I believed it because I was like, I can't go back to performing how I did as a Marine. Like, I don't know what I did. I had an unhealthy relationship with food. I had eating disorders. I had all these things in my past. And I shifted that belief. I changed my focus and my goals, and now I'm in like the best shape of my life. And so that question applies to your peak performance, but it also applies to your business, how you do business, your life, your goals, your family, your relationships, all of it. So I love that. I love that question, my friend. It was a beautiful way to wrap the show. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to add one more thing to what you just said here at the very end with the belief. And the reason I brought this one up is at our second retreat, I was doing a presentation which was exactly on this topic that you just said, and or touched on as well, with the belief shift. And the thing is, if you hold a belief, and a lot of people hold the belief when it comes to their fitness, but also business, like, oh, I don't have that much potential. Right? Let's say you think you don't have that much potential, and you think your potential is a 5 out of a 10. Well, we know that your beliefs drive your thoughts, and your beliefs drive your behavior, and thoughts drive your thoughts, and then your thoughts drive your actions, right? Or your emotions drive your actions. So, that belief cycle from whoever that is. So if you think you're a 5, what's your behavior going to be? Like a 5. And what are your results going to be? Like a 5. So you just confirm that belief. And I say, you see, George, I told you, I don't have what it takes. I'm a 5, man. I suck at this. Right? Because you already assume that you suck. Well, let's say you're really a 5, you have to work twice as hard. So that belief doesn't serve you either way. Whether it's true or not, it doesn't serve you, right? So if you question it and you see how that negative feedback loop is happening, it just unlocks so many doors, right?
I love it. I'm going to leave it there because for everybody listening, that's just tickled somebody's brain. And I think that that's the best place to leave it. So, for everybody listening, let this be a permission slip, a pattern interrupter, a break check to focus on the right things, to not sacrifice your health, to not sacrifice your priorities, but to, Mauro's point, to sequence them in the right order and realize that you can squeeze a whole lot more out of this. And whatever landed or resonated for you, share it with him. If you have a question, if you have a takeaway, just shoot him a message on Instagram. I'm sure he'd love to hear it. And just know that you're worth it, because life is that one thing that we get issued, this one vehicle, and we get to steward it. But the better you care for it, the more time you get, the better you can utilize your time, and the better you can perform. And so there was a ton of tangible takeaways in this, and I'm excited to see how you guys implement them. And so we're going to wrap the show. We're going to land the plane. And so you'll either see me in the next episode or you'll hear me in your earballs. But either way, we're out.